Hello, friends. I've about gotten my tree up. I've got it up and decorated, and those of you that know me know that is a walk down memory lane for me because I have ornaments that date back to my first Christmas as a married woman, which was 1970. And then I've added special meaning ornaments ever since. There were some from my sister. There's just so many, and I love it. And one of my favorites is this little ornament. And I know some of you have it and know what it's about, but it says, God has a special place for everyone. And it's the little lamb, the crippled lamb. And every year for several years since this book came out, I've loved to read it. It's called The Crippled Lamb, and it's by Max Lacado. And if you haven't heard it, I thought you would like to hear it today. And if you want to buy it, it's got the most wonderful pictures in it, each page. So I like looking at the pages. Um, the Crippled Lamb. Once upon a time in a sunny valley, there lived a little lamb named Joshua. He was white with black spots, black feet, and sad eyes. Josh felt sad when he saw the other lambs with snow white wool and no spots. He felt sad when he saw the other sheep with their moms and dads because he didn't have a mom or dad. But he felt saddest when he saw the other lambs running and jumping because he couldn't. Josh had been born with one leg that didn't work right. He was crippled. He always limped when he walked. That's why he always watched while the other lambs ran and played. Josh felt sad and alone, except when Abigail was around. Abigail was Josh's best friend. She didn't look like a friend for a lamb. She was an old cow. She was brown with white blotches that looked like rain puddles on a path. Her belly was as round as a barrel, and her voice was always kind and friendly. I'll see if I can show you the picture. There's the crippled little lamb, and there's the Abigail. Some of Josh's favorites hours were spent with Abigail. They loved to pretend they were on adventures in distant lands. Josh liked to listen to Abigail tell stories about the stars. They would spend hours on the hill looking into the valley. They were good friends, but even with a friend like Abigail, Josh still got sad. It made him sad to be the only lamb who could not run and jump and play in the grass. That's when Abigail would turn to him and say, "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God has a special place for those who feel left out." Josh wanted to believe her, but it was hard. Some days he just felt alone. He felt alone the day the shepherds decided to take the lambs to the next valley where there was no grass. The sheep had been in the valley so long and the ground was nearly bare. All the sheep were excited when the shepherd told them they were going to a new meadow. As they prepared to leave, Josh hobbled over and took his place on the edge of the group, but the others started laughing at him. "You're too slow to go all the way to the next valley. Go back, slowpoke. We'll never get there if we have to wait on you. Go back, Joshua." That's when Joshua looked up and he saw the shepherd standing in front of him. "They are right, my little Joshua. You better go back. The trip is too long for you. Go and spend the night in the stable." Josh looked at the man for a long time. Then he turned around and he limped away. When Josh got to the top of the hill, he looked down and he saw all the other sheep headed toward the green grass. Never before had he felt so left out. A big tear slipped out of his eye, rolled down his nose, and fell on a rock. Just then he heard Abigail behind him, and Abigail said what she always said when Josh felt sad. "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God has a special place for those who feel left out." Slowly, the two friends turned and they walked to the stable together. By the time they got to the little barn, the sun was setting like a big orange ball. Joshua and Abigail were inside and they began to eat some hay out of the feed box. They were hungry and the hay tasted so good. For a little while, Joshua forgot that he had been left behind. Go to sleep, little friend, Abigail said after they'd finished eating. You've had a hard day. Josh was tired, so he lay down in the corner on some straw and he closed his eyes. He felt Abigail lay down beside him, and he was glad to have her as a friend. When Josh was asleep, at first he slept soundly, curled up against Abigail's back. In his sheep, in his sleep, he dreamed of running and jumping just like the other sheep. He dreamed of long walks with Abigail through the valley. He dreamed of being in the place where he never felt left out. Suddenly, strange noises made him wake up. Abigail, he whispered, wake up, I'm scared. Abigail lifted her big head and she looked around. The stable was dark except for a small lamp hanging on the wall. Somebody's in here, Josh whispered. They looked across the dimly lighted stable. There, laying on some fresh hay in the feed box, was a baby. A young woman was resting on a pile of hay beside the feed box. Joshua looked at Abigail, thinking his friend could tell him what was going on. But Abigail was just as surprised as Josh. Josh looked again at the woman and the child, and then he limped across the stable. He stopped next to the mother, and he looked into the baby's face. The baby was crying because he was cold. The woman picked up the baby and put him on the hay next to her. Josh looked around the stable for something to keep the baby warm. Usually there were blankets, but not tonight. The shepherds had taken them on their trip across the valley. Then Josh remembered his own warm wool. Timidly, he walked over and he curled up close to the baby. Thank you, little lamb, the baby's mother said softly. Soon the little child stopped crying and he went back to sleep. About that time, a man entered the stable carrying some rags. I'm so sorry, Mary, he explained. This is all the cover I could find. It's okay, she answered. This little lamb has kept the new king warm. A king? Joshua looked at the baby and wondered who he might be. His name is Jesus, Mary spoke as if she knew Josh's question. God's son. He came from heaven to teach us about God. I have to show you the picture. Just then there was another noise at the door. It was the shepherds, the one who had left Joshua behind. Their eyes were big and they were excited. We saw a bright light and heard the angels, they began. Then they saw Joshua next to the baby. Joshua, do you know who this baby is? He does now. It was the young mother who was speaking. She looked at Joshua and she smiled. God has heard your prayers, little lamb. This little baby is the answer. Joshua looked down at the baby. Somehow he knew this was a special child and this was a special moment. He also understood why he'd been born with a crippled leg. Had he been like the other sheep, he would have been in the valley. But since he was different, he was in the stable, among the first to welcome Jesus into the world. I always get teary eyed when I read that because I so believe what this little ornament has written on it. God has a special reason in place for everyone. Um, it's just such a wonderful truth about God's creation. He saw you in your mother's womb and he numbered the days of your life before you were ever born. Isn't that amazing to know? And we can bank on that. So I have two of these ornaments. So I've got the other one on the tree and I'm going to go hang this one. And if you're feeling sad and it's a hard Christmas for you, no, God's got it. Trust him. Bye bye.